Thank you. That's so beautiful. So think of the last time you forgave someone or said, I forgive you. Think of the last time that happened. Maybe it was a month ago, or a week ago, or yesterday, or even this morning. You thought, I forgive you. And think of the last time you asked someone, will you forgive me? When was the last time that you recognized a misstep and asked someone to forgive you? How long ago was that? And we remember the words of Jesus at the time of crucifixion. Forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. For me, forgiveness feels like a really important practice on my spiritual journey. And I was thinking about what to talk about today, and everywhere I turned, there was this message on forgiveness. It was on YouTube, it was on my chat, it was everywhere I looked was forgiveness. So I said, okay, I'll take that as a message. We talk about forgiveness today. And I think it's important for us to, from time to time, go back to our foundational teachings to strengthen the core of us. When our foundation of our home, we check it out every now and then, and we seal the cracks, and we steady that foundation so that our house is firm. And we do that with our spiritual foundational teachings too. And in the next few weeks, we'll be talking about our unity principles and then a fresh, different look at them. But today, it's forgiveness. And when I look at social media, when I hear news headlines, I see that there's a great opportunity for all of us to open our hearts to the idea of forgiveness. When we are conscious and holding a consciousness of unforgiveness, and I'll speak for myself, when I am in a consciousness of unforgiveness, I am in a consciousness of separation. I see myself separate from the person that I perceived having done me wrong, having transgressed me. I see myself separate from them. We're not the same. I would never do such a thing as that. So they're separate and distinct from me. And when I see that one person separate from myself, it's really easy to fall into seeing others, anyone who thinks differently than me, on political issues, social justice issues, just life in general. I can see them as separate from me. Pretty soon, I'm separate from everybody and everything, which is just a total falsehood. But that's what I tell myself. And when I practice forgiveness, it brings me back into alignment with my truth. It brings me back into harmony with my divine identity. It brings me back into remembering my oneness with my God, my Creator, my Source, and with all of you, and with all of humanity, and with all of creation. Take that in. That takes my breath away to think that I am in harmony and oneness with everyone and everything. For me, this practice of forgiveness is powerful, it's meaningful, and it's so very necessary for my spiritual life to progress and to move ahead. Unforgiveness really allows me to slip very easily into bitterness, into resentment. Forgiveness untethers me, and I believe all of us, from the bondage of an experience. And boy, do we have experiences, don't we? Life is full of them. And it's said that our Unity co-founder, Charles Fillmore, had a daily practice of forgiveness, daily. He sat at the end of his day and reviewed the activities of his day to see who he felt offended him. And he forgave them. Then he sat with those people who he thought that perhaps he had offended and forgave himself. He suggests that each of us sit in a time of silence and mentally forgive everyone and everything that we have held an ill will or a prejudice against. And in that time of silence, we can lift that request, please forgive me, into the ethers, and knowing and trusting that the universe carries that energy to that person. And that person then feels that anyone who we have spoken harshly about. Have you said anything harsh about anyone in the past 24 hours? Anyone who we have gossiped about. Now, I've seen social media, and I know there's an awful lot of gossip. Anyone that we have accused of injustice, we can ask for forgiveness. If it feels right to you to make amends in person, by all means do that. Oh my gosh, that's refreshing. If you've never done it, give it a try. For me, it feels right to follow the intent of the greatest commandment. The greatest commandment and kind of shifting it to forgiveness. In Matthew, Mark, and Luke, they share the idea that greatest commandment is to first love God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. That's a lot of love. And the second commandment, very much like it, is to love your neighbor as yourself. When I apply that same theme to forgiveness, I am to forgive with all of my heart, not holding any peace back for tomorrow to get back into the anger, to get back into the harsh feelings, to, with all of my heart, to love someone who I have put out of my heart. With all my soul, with all that I am, my thoughts, my words, and my actions, and with all of my mind, anyone who I have held a harsh judgment against. And boy, I can make a list. I can do it alphabetically, I can do it chronologically, but I can make a list, yes, and with all my strength, not in a haphazard way, not flippantly, but intentionally, on purpose, and with meaning, forgiveness. And forgive your neighbor as you forgive yourself. That's second commandment. I've always said, and you're going to get tired of hearing this, that we give from the overflow of our hearts. So if we don't have love in our hearts, it's difficult, if possible at all, to give love to someone else. I've said it about loving kindness, about compassion, about generosity, and I think that it's true about forgiveness too. If I don't have forgiveness in my heart, if I'm not practicing forgiveness for me, how can I forgive someone else? I'm forgiving from the overflow. So if I don't compassionately forgive myself when I misstep, when I miss the mark, when I speak or act in some kind of way, or when I hold a thought about myself or about another that is judgmental, that is harsh, that is not true, if I don't practice forgiveness with myself, how can I be forgiving with another? And as I grew in my practice of forgiveness, I learned something very interesting, that when I felt complete in forgiving someone, I still had a lingering something. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, what it was. And what I learned with that was forgiving myself. It took me a long time to get into that practice. The judgments that I held against myself, the slothful words that I had used towards myself, the unhelpful thoughts, old ideas or beliefs that I was this awful person, that I was not worthy. And when I could forgive myself, it all came together. It all came together beautifully. I have to forgive myself when I miss the mark. You know, I'm this human being. I'm a spiritual being, I mean to say, but I'm living this very human existence. I have the same human challenges as everybody else does. So I know we get challenged and we often miss the mark. But I also remember that I'm not the victim of anyone. So when someone does something that I perceive as an offense, I get to work with that. That's a very important learning for me. Now, this does not refer to experiences of trauma, violence, or abuse. This is our everyday ego bruising. I also remember that I am a powerful co-creator of my life, co-creating with the divine, co-creating with all of you, and co-creating with all of humanity. Now, there are some things that forgiveness is and some things that forgiveness is not. Forgiveness is not necessarily forgetting. It's not necessarily forgetting. Forgiveness is not moving forward as though nothing happened, so that the other person feels okay about themselves. Forgiveness is not reconciliation. Reconciliation is a whole separate process. That's part 2. Forgiveness is a great start towards that. That forgiveness opens a door to the possibility of reconciliation, and that's what we do for ourselves, with ourselves. But reconciliation requires the participation of the other to agree to perhaps new ways to be together. Forgiveness is not making things right with the other person. I can forgive someone and still keep boundaries intact for me in what is safe for me, what is right for me. I can still keep those boundaries intact. A minister that I watch, Reverend Joseph Yu, says this: we can forgive someone and we can still say, you don't have the same access to me as you used to. You don't have the same access to my heart or my being as you used to. But forgiveness helps us free ourselves from resentment, from anger, and for the desire of retribution. Forgiveness allows us to let those things just go by the wayside. It's not pretending that we weren't hurt. It's acknowledging the bruises and the wounds that we experience. But we're not going to let them take up space in our life anymore, that we're moving on. We're going to use that to grow and expand ourselves, to expand our awareness of the divine, to take our work and our experiences deeper in ourselves. And it always, always, always feels important for me to say this about forgiveness. When there is trauma, when there is violence, and when there is abuse, there's other processes that happen before forgiveness. There is much more healing that goes before forgiveness. When we experience trauma, we don't jump right into forgiveness. There's a lot that happens before that. So forgiveness is never saying that the violence or abuse is okay. Forgiveness is never saying that violence or abuse is okay. What forgiveness says in these experiences is, I get the final say for my life and what I do with the experience. I get the final say. Forgiveness says, I get to decide how I'm going to use this experience. Forgiveness says that what was done was so awful, so egregious, that I no longer wish to have you or that take up space in my life. And again, there is counseling and therapy and processing and healing that goes with any violence or trauma or abuse before we even begin to talk about forgiveness. So I have found that sometimes, and I know this doesn't happen to any of you, but I get so engaged and engrossed in my story of how I have been wronged by someone that I just can't jump into forgiveness, because I'm telling this story. Oh, I might not tell it to you, but it's going on in my mind. I'm having these great conversations with, wasn't it awful, just what they thought they could do and what they did. It takes a minute to get into forgiveness. I can't just jump right in. So when I find myself resisting forgiveness or digging my heels into being the victim, I turn to a fabulous exercise of compassion. I know I've shared it with you in the past, and it is very useful. It's from a book by Harry Palmer, and the book is called Techniques for Exploring Consciousness. So I'm going to ask you to participate in this with me. Think of a person who you may have put outside or on the edge of your heart, someone who you thought, oh, well, that wasn't very nice what they did to me, someone who might be open to forgiveness. Hold that person in your mind and use these lines. Just like me, they are seeking happiness in their life. Just like me, they are trying to avoid suffering in their life. Just like me, they have known sadness, loneliness, and despair. Just like me, they are seeking to fulfill their needs. And just like me, they are learning about life. What do you notice happens to you when you use those words, just like me? I don't know about you, but that kind of softens the edges of my hardness. That kind of softens the judgment that I've made of them, because they're just like me. We're in this experience of life together, and there's no difference. Just like me. We're trying to make meaning of this experience. Just like me. Boy, that softens a lot for me, and I hope it does you as well. And the other day, I was speaking to our friend Brian Lotman, who was here in April, and we were talking about a lot of things, and forgiveness came up. And he said that sometimes things happen in his life that it feels impossible to forgive. Perhaps a family betrayal that is so deep and so profound that we just don't think we can ever completely forgive. And he shared with me that for him, that's a time for him to invite grace, the grace of the universe, the grace of God, and the miracle of forgiveness. he shared a mantra with me, and there it is. Om Kashama. And Om is that vibration of the universe. And in Sanskrit, Kashama, as Brian told me, is forgiveness. And that chant opens him to the possibility to, it shifts his energy. It opens mind and heart to the graces of God. And we've all experienced the grace of God. It creates a space for the divine to work in us. And it invites us to remember our true self, our divine nature, our goodness, and that others are just like us. And Sakwi is kind enough to lead us in a chant of Om Kashama. So let's follow along.
If I can just get you to just close your eyes and dig deep into the space of your heart. We are going to start and close with 3 Oms and then with the Om Kashama in the middle. And you just breathe deep into the space of your heart.
When we allow that energy of the universe to move in us, it shifts us, it shapes us into the image and likeness of itself. You are welcome to open your eyes as you are ready. As you may have gathered, this practice of forgiveness is a beautiful, freeing, opening practice. And it's not a one-time experience. Often, people will ask me, well, Karen, how long does it take? How long do I have to do this? The truth is, it takes as long as it takes. And I'm not being cheeky with that. Each and every time we enter into the spaciousness of forgiveness, we forgive a different perspective of the experience. we forgive a different layer of the hurt. And we forgive and forgive and forgive until there's nothing left to forgive. And when Jesus was asked by the disciples, how many times should I forgive my brother? Should I forgive them 70 times? I can just imagine Jesus laughing. No, we forgive 70 times 7. And metaphysically, that number 7 means completion. So we forgive until we are complete. I know I'm complete with forgiveness when I feel grateful for the experience and what message that it brought me. What new awareness have I gained about myself, about my God, about my relationship with God and with the other? It can take 17 days or 17 years. But we forgive until we're done, until every aspect, until every layer is healed. I've learned that this practice of forgiveness for me has been a foundation in my spiritual life. It reminds me of the truth of me. It reminds me of the truth of everyone else. It keeps me mindful of my thoughts, words, and actions throughout the day as I look at them and how I might offend someone. It keeps me open and aware of my speaking, the words I use, the thoughts I hold, and the actions that I take. So however you engage this practice of forgiveness, if it's 70 times 7 until completion, if it's holding the person in the beauty of white light, if it's writing that letter to purge the energy, that letter that you never send, and if you feel the urge to send it, don't. And a month later, if you still feel the urge to send it, don't. Or if you drive out into the middle of the woods and scream, however you practice and engage forgiveness, do it with love. As we share 1 Corinthians 16:14, let's speak it together. Let all you do be done in love. Namaste.